All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Have you ever just stopped and wondered why Japanese children often seem so incredibly disciplined? I mean, you see them confidently carrying out responsibilities on their own, waiting patiently in public, keeping their stuff perfectly organized, and they're doing all of this without a parent constantly hovering over them, yelling, or offering a bunch of bribes. So, what exactly is going on here? You'd probably think it boils down to super strict parenting, right? Like, you might assume it requires way more discipline, harsher rules, or just a really rigid home life. But the truth is actually entirely different, and honestly, a whole lot more inspiring. The secret isn't about controlling children at all. It's really about designing an environment where that discipline just develops naturally. Now, most of us grew up with the traditional approach. You know the drill. Discipline begins with consequences, good behavior gets a reward, bad behavior gets a punishment. But the Japanese approach flips that entire paradigm on its head. Instead of asking how to force a child to behave through external consequences, the focus shifts to internal motivation. It's all about helping them genuinely want to behave responsibly. To really unpack how this works, we're going to follow a clear roadmap. We've got 6 core pillars to cover today: the discipline paradox, the ownership effect, the art of Mimamoru, systems over motivation, belonging over obedience, and finally, guiding from the inside. Kicking things off with Section 1, the discipline paradox, helping them want to behave. So here's the crazy paradox. By actually letting go of constant nagging and correcting, you get better behavior. In a lot of Western households, we default straight to rewards and punishments, but the Japanese model proves that kids actually learn best through active, deep participation. Rather than micromanaging every little misstep, parents and educators create this environment where the child learns by doing and by observing the responsible behavior modeled all around them. Moving right along to Section 2, the ownership effect, building identity through responsibility. This taps into something psychologists call the ownership effect. It's basically the reality that we naturally take way better care of things when we feel personally responsible for them. And kids, they're absolutely no different. This totally explains why Japanese students help clean their own classrooms, organize their materials, and even serve lunch. And no, it isn't just about getting free labor. When kids help care for a space, that space starts to feel like theirs. They're building this deep, permanent sense of responsibility. Let's bring this closer to home. Picture a young, say, 5-year-old kid trying to set the dinner table every single night. At first, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a disaster. They're going to forget the forks, drop a spoon, put napkins on the floor. It'll honestly take way longer than if you just stepped in and did it yourself. But over time, as they keep showing up to do it, the task transforms. It stops being this annoying chore they're forced to do. But here's the absolute game changer. It becomes a core piece of who they are. They start thinking, hey, I'm someone who helps. Natural discipline literally begins right here. It starts with this emotional ownership, not from a fear of getting a timeout or the promise of a shiny sticker. Which brings us to Section 3, the art of Mimamoru, watch and protect. So Mimamoru is this really fascinating cultural concept that roughly translates to watch and protect. Now, at first glance, just standing back and observing might feel totally passive, but intentionally holding back and letting kids experience small struggles within safe boundaries is incredibly powerful. Because true confidence, it doesn't come from being rescued the second things get tough. It comes from discovering that you can actually handle hard things yourself. Think about a little kid trying to tie their shoes. Our absolute first instinct as parents is usually to jump right in after 3 seconds of fumbling, right? We have this overwhelming urge to just fix it so we can finally get out the door. But the Mimamoru approach creates the space for them to succeed on their own terms. You watch, you support, you encourage, but you don't immediately take over. And when that kid eventually gets that knot right on their own, man, that successful struggle builds something way more valuable than just tied shoelaces. It builds the rock-solid belief that says, I can figure things out. That right there is the foundation of lifelong self-discipline. Next up, Section 4, systems over motivation, the power of routines. Here's a little secret. Highly disciplined kids aren't just magically bursting with motivation all the time. That is a total myth. What they actually rely on are highly structured routines. Routines completely remove decision fatigue. When a kid knows exactly what happens next, the behavior just becomes automatic. You don't need constant reminders, and you definitely don't need to yell. The system just naturally makes good behavior the easiest option. Think about a super simple daily sequence. Step 1, brush teeth. Step 2, put shoes away. Step 3, pack the school bag. When you lock in a repeatable system like this day in and day out, repetition just takes over the wheel. The behavior happens because of a deeply ingrained habit loop, not because someone is barking orders or asking them for the 14th time to find their left shoe. A lot of Japanese families lean heavily into this kind of daily structure instead of trying to artificially hype up motivation every morning. All right, Section 5. Belonging over obedience. Developing empathy. This is really the emotional core of this whole explainer. In the Japanese approach, kids learn super early on that their actions directly impact the group, whether that's their family, their classroom, or the wider community. And crucially, this isn't about making the child feel guilty when they mess up. It's about fostering deep, genuine awareness. When kids truly grasp that their behavior ripples out and affects others, empathy develops right alongside their discipline. This completely flips the script on what a kid asks themselves. An obedience mindset is all about, what happens if I get caught? Am I going to lose my iPad? But a belonging mindset, that asks, how does my behavior actually affect the people around me? Lasting discipline isn't about fearing external control. It's about developing this deep internal sense of responsibility to the people you actually care about. And finally, Section 6, Guiding from the Inside. The final takeaway. Look, obviously, no parenting system on Earth is 100% perfect, and every family faces challenges. But the massive takeaway here is that discipline isn't something you can just forcefully inject into a child. It's something you have to gradually help them build. You achieve it by giving them responsibility early, grounding their world in routine, trusting them to figure things out through Mimamoru, and letting them meaningfully contribute to the family. Because when kids actually feel capable and trusted, discipline stops feeling like this heavy punishment coming down from above. It just becomes a natural part of who they are. Because at the end of the day, the ultimate goal isn't just raising children who blindly obey orders. The real goal is raising children who have the internal compass to guide themselves. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. I really hope these concepts shed some light on a completely different but highly effective way to think about behavior. I want to leave you with a quick question to chew on. Looking back, what is one responsibility you really wish you had yearned earlier as a kid? Think about how that might have completely shaped your own habits today. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.